The United States again launching strikes across Iran last night, just hours after President Trump said he believed that the ceasefire was over. U.S. Central Command says it hit 90 targets, including missile and drone sites near the Strait of Hormuz. This is all in an effort to further degrade Iran's ability to threaten shipping in the key waterway. Iranian state media and the IRGC also reported strikes on bridges in the country, which would be the first attacks of its kind from the U.S. since April. Iran's health ministry says that the 2 days of U.S. strikes have killed at least 14 people and wounded dozens more. President Trump called yesterday's strikes retribution for Iran's attacks on commercial vessels, warning on social media that if it happens again, it'll get much worse. Iran, meanwhile, once again hit back, attacking U.S. bases in Kuwait and Bahrain for a second night. The country's parliament speaker and top negotiator issued this warning to the U.S. If you strike, you'll get hit. As tensions and rhetoric again ramp up, President Trump was asked yesterday why his opinion of Iran's leaders has changed.
Last month, you said Iranian leaders were very rational people, nice people to deal with, strong people, smart people. Today, you said they were scum, sick people, and being led by sick people. What changed, and do you think...
I got to know them. So I've said that about a lot. Now, when you say rational, I think they're much more rational than level 1, level 2. Level 1 is gone, level 2 is gone. This is level 3. I think they are more rational, but based on their actions over the last week or two, they're not doing a service to the people. And I think more than anything else is I got to know them. And I'm not sure I want to make a deal with them. We can play games, but I'm not sure I want to make a deal. Let's just finish the job.
Let's bring in MS Now senior national security reporter David Rode. David, we are back at square one, it seems. Yesterday, the president said that the ceasefire was over, and now we're once again seeing stepped-up strikes in the region. What's your sense of things, and are we returning to a full-out war here?
We could be, and it's been confusing. The president sort of changing his message every day. But the broad thing is that we're back. I mean, what's going on is that Iran is taking control of the Strait of Hormuz. They were supposed to reopen it completely under the Memorandum of Understanding. That hasn't happened. They've attacked multiple ships.
But were they supposed to open it completely or in coordination with them?
In coordination with the U.S. I think, to be fair to the Trump administration, the U.S. was allowing ships back into Iran's ports. The issue's been there was one day, I think the day before yesterday, where 3 ships were attacked. One nearly sank. The crew had to abandon it. So Iran is saying we are going to control the Strait of Hormuz. We're going to charge fees. That's another proposal that's gone out there. And so the number of strikes that the U.S. is carrying out now are much more intense, the 60 and then 90. And so this is back to the key question. Can you win this war with Iran simply by bombing? Can you bend them to your will? And the answer so far has been no, not at all.
And even the bombing doesn't resolve the Strait of Hormuz issue, which has seemingly been the biggest pinch point here.
It is, and the whole issue is that oil prices are up again. So you've got the midterm elections coming very soon. This MOU was signed on June 17th. It's a 60-day window to negotiate on all these incredibly complicated matters. Things are going backwards, not forwards. So in terms of the nuclear, this was one of the other strange. And I'll be honest, the president's comments were erratic. He contradicted himself on Ukraine. He contradicted himself on Iran. And one of the amazing things he said yesterday was that the nuclear material, this enriched uranium, he said it was sort of buried now in this mountain. And he talked about the B-2 strikes last June, having the mountain collapse and no one can now get at it. And he seemed to be saying that, like, that's no longer an issue. And that was, again, those were the strikes before we went to war in February. It was last June when the B-2 bombers flew halfway around the world and hit these storage sites. So why then did we go to war in February if it was buried and they could never access it? So he's contradicting himself. It's a confusing message to the public. But most of all, he's not achieving any of his goals. And at this stage, he'd be lucky to get something like the JCPOA. I don't think he'll get something as good as Obama's nuclear deal the way this is going. And
before we pivot to another issue that cropped up yesterday, is this just, in your opinion, is this the mercurial presidency continued, or is that 60-day countdown from the Memorandum of Understanding moot? It's a mercurial president, but I just think the really scary thing is just
a lack of understanding in this very small circle. I've talked to members of the first Trump administration that said there were more experts involved. A fundamental misunderstanding of the Iranian regime. You kill the top of it, it doesn't matter. It's a revolutionary movement. A fundamental misunderstanding of Ukraine. The Ukrainians are doing much better. They're winning this war. When Trump, the famous scene in the Oval a few months ago saying, you don't have any cards. Well, guess what? Zelensky's, attacking Moscow with drones now.
Let's talk about the plane issue, because the president flew his newly outfitted, upgraded gift from Qatar to the NATO summit in Turkey, but he did not fly it back. Well, what's going on? Can you explain to our viewers what happened yesterday?
Yeah, so our colleagues Priya Sridhar and Carol Leonnig and Ken Delaney did a story, and I tried to help. But the main issue was that we've heard from sources that Secret Service members were worried that the new plane isn't secure enough. And what happened while Trump was in Ankara was he started these new strikes. So the new plane does not have the secure communication systems. He needs to stay in touch when there's an active military conflict, when there's active, bombings going on and U.S. service members in danger. And then secondly, there's concern that the new plane doesn't have the same defenses. There's like anti-missile systems in the old Air Force One that could sort of shoot down or fire chaff off the side of the plane to make sure no kind of missile that's fired at it could hit it. So Trump flew in the old Air Force One from Ankara to the UK, where he then switched into the new Air Force One, the Qatari jet, and flew home in that. So, again, expertise.
Right.
These are all very complicated issues, and the new plane, has a wonderful paint job, but apparently it's not as secure as the old plane.
Yeah, a reason for these upgrades costing billions of dollars and taking years to get it done. But President Trump says the U.S. is going to allow Ukraine to manufacture Patriot air defense systems, appearing to grant one of Kyiv's biggest requests as Russia intensifies its missile attacks. Ukraine says it's running low on interceptors, and over 50 people have been killed in Russian strikes this week. Trump announced the move after meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the NATO summit.
The company that makes them, which is building now 4 plants, all of our companies will be able to do this in 2 to 3 months. If you order a Patriot, now you have to wait a long time for them. Same thing with Tomahawks. We have a lot of certain equipment, but with they call it the elite equipment, and you don't need elite equipment necessarily for a war. But so one of the things we're going to be talking about is we're going to give a license to you to make Patriots. That's pretty cool, right? This way you can't complain that we're not giving them enough. I say, make them yourself.
Now, Trump said Ukraine would get a license to build missiles. He also acknowledged that U.S. defense companies haven't yet been informed. And experts say that it could take years before Ukraine is able to produce sophisticated interceptors. However, Trump still expressed optimism about a possible meeting between Russian President Putin and Zelensky, though Zelensky brushed off any chance of it happening in Moscow.
President Putin said, I would love to meet in Moscow. And I said, I don't think, I have to put myself in his position. I don't know that he'd go to Moscow. Maybe he would. Would you go to Moscow?
It's difficult. There are a lot of Ukrainian drones there. That's right. It's dangerous.
He doesn't want to be hit by a drone.
What did you make of that interaction there? And why are we, this feels a little bit like a full circle moment. Why is the president suddenly coming back to the Ukraine issue with a potentially more generous and benevolent posture?
I want to credit, I think, the Europeans with managing the president well. What they said is, give them this license. It'll be jobs for Americans, And it was interesting, too, when he came out of the last meeting with all the NATO leaders, he talked about what an amazing and beautiful meeting it was and how unified they were. And so clearly in this private meeting, there was praise for President Trump. And he said he wished, American voters could see that. And I'm trying to be fair here, but they clearly flatter him. They talk about his unity, but, by the end of the meeting, but it's just all the noise. He came in on the first day of the meeting, he talked about how it was so important that the U.S. get Greenland. He wants Greenland again. Right. There's an opportunity to, the momentum in the war is finally on Ukraine's side. They're gaining more territory on the ground than Russia. They're reaching Moscow. So the summit was a chance to unify and pressure Putin. And instead, it's Iceland on day one and attacking all the other leaders for not giving enough money, which isn't true. They're actually hitting their targets. And then on day 2, he's sort of springing these questions on Zelensky, will you go to Moscow right now? So I think an opportunity was missed there. But the Patriots are a step forward. And then back to like the broader problem, there's a shortage of interceptors all over the world.
Right.
Why? Because the president chose to go to war against Iran, and it's turned into a much more complicated, much more costly war. So all the American allies, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE want interceptors as well. And so now there's a shortage. And so I'm just concerned because there's like this long-term basic understanding of Iran, basic understanding of Ukraine. And also, and lastly, the U.S. defense budget, the new one, is $1.5 trillion. That includes billions of dollars for Trump-class battleships, which is a kind of ship that we don't need. It's this big ship with like nuclear reactors that are going to run it. We should be building cheap drones and cheaper interceptors. That's the cutting edge thing in war. But we're doing all these big, expensive weapon systems.
Another vanity project?
Yes. And the lesson is we've got to innovate. And it's extraordinary what Ukraine has done in terms of drones. And the regime in Iran is horrible. They've done incredibly well with these small, cheap drones also.
MS Now senior national security reporter speaking Trumpology for us with Trump overseas. Thank you so much.